Here's a short video on the typical wine aromas you may expect in Chiantis and wines made with Sangiovese grapes. So if we look at the wine aroma wheel, uh, of course you can detect many wine aromas, but most of them would be from the floral family, the spicy family, the fruity, and more specifically the berry family, some vegetative aromas more on the dry side, and an earthy component. So let's review a few of these aromas together. So the first one would be cherry. It's part of the tree fruit family. It evokes the smell of dark cherry, but I've also seen reviews mentioning dried cherry. So black cherry, dried cherry, different nuances in the aroma that you may detect, but always this cherry component that can be evoked by different aroma compounds such as benzaldehyde, so more on the almond type note, or ethyl cinnamate or 3-methyl butanoate, which convey the most darker cherry note. So typically in red wine, not only in Sangiovese, but you may detect some cherry flavors, cherry nuances in Sangiovese. The next one is maybe expected for this type of wine, dark berries that evoke the smell of blueberries and blackberry mix. It could be fresh or in a tart, like on the picture. Definitely a primary aroma that is evoked by different esters, but also ion type of compounds. So a typical um, aromas that you will find in red wines, but again, this might be also the case for Sangiovese. Plum, I've read several wine reviews of Chiantis evoking plum or plum jam. So that's a note that is quite difficult to detect in wine because the flavor is not as pronounced as the prune, which is the dried plum. But you may, if you are very familiar with this type of fruity aromas of stone fruit, you can maybe expect this aroma in Sangiovese. The aroma compound coming from the berries is called plum crotonate. Not very fancy name, but it definitely is responsible for this particular note. So maybe plum jam, maybe fresh plum, but maybe prune, depending on the age of the wine. Some floral notes can be expected in Sangiovese, and the one that comes often in the reviews I've read is violet, and violet definitely a floral note that can be quite potent in some wines. It evokes the violet in blooms. If you don't have violet, nearby your home, you might, smell some violet fragrance or violet essential oils that you may find in the grocery store or specialty store if you want to remind yourself about what violet smell like. But this particular aroma is evoked by compounds called ionones, alpha and beta, and definitely present in those red wines. What is interesting with those ionones is that depending on the ratio that they are present in the wine, they will evoke a violet, but also raspberry. So in a wine, depending on your sensitivity or how concentrated those compounds are in the wine, they may evoke a floral note or a red berry note. Rose. You might expect rose more in some white wines, such as Gewürztraminer, but definitely some red wines, such as Pinot Noir and Sangiovese, or most commonly known Nebbiolo, can have this distinct floral note that is definitely part of the floral category on the wine aroma wheel. It evokes the smell of rose petals, and the compounds responsible for this particular note are the cis rose oxide and the damascenone. And again, you will find beta-ionone depending on the concentration, and maybe the blend of these compounds will uh, provide different nuances of the rose aroma, because as you know, different rose varieties have different rose perfumes. So that's the magic of the of flavor chemistry and aroma chemistry. So rose can be present in Sangiovese. If you're not familiar or haven't smelled roses in a long time, or if you purchase rose that have no fragrance, again, there are rose water available in some specialty stores that you can go and smell the perfume to remind you of what a rose smells like. Licorice is part of the spicy family. It evokes the aroma of black licorice or star anise. Or, if it is more on the herbaceous side, it is also associated with tarragon. So tarragon, black licorice, star anise are all evoked by the same compound, anethol, and it's a secondary aroma often produced during winemaking, very present in red wines. So you might expect some licorice or star anise. Um, I haven't read tarragon in the reviews that I've seen, but why not? Clove. Clove is another spicy note that you may expect in red wines aged in oak barrels, because it's coming from the barrel aging. Eugenol or isoeugenols are byproducts of the oak barrel toasting, and they tend to migrate to the wine when the wine is aged in those casks or barrels. So interesting aroma compound. When it's very intense, it might remind you of the dentist office, because that's the aroma that the anesthetics have when you go to the dentist. Sorry for the bad memories. But if you are not familiar with clove, I invite you to smell the clove that you might have in your kitchen cabinet. So another compound that might be present in Chianti wines if they have been aged in oak barrels. An interesting note that is often associated with Italian wines. I don't know if it is because of the cuisine, and then the reviewers and the critics have this type of aromas in mind, but Mediterranean herbs. Definitely part of the herbaceous family on the wine aroma wheel, more on the dried side. So it evokes the aroma of dried herbs, such as rosemary and thyme. And these aromas are evoked by terpenes compounds, but also so we've seen cineol in the past. Might remind you also of eucalyptus, but pinens or pinene, I don't know how you pronounce that in English. Um, that's also a compound that you will find in pine trees, and it's a compound that can be present in some of those resinous herbs, such as rosemary. So again, when you think about the wine, don't always think just about the fruits, but you can have floral notes, spicy notes, and those dried herbs that may come up as you smell and swirl and smell the wine. Earthy, that's the attribute that I personally associated for a long time with Chiantis. That is this what people would describe as rustic wines, but earthy, depending on the type of earthy that you will smell, can be desirable or non-desirable, because it's part of the moldy family. And if it is at high concentration and produced by a compound called geosmin, it is a off note. It's different from the petrichor that people are describing in some of the wines. If you think about the undergrowth in the forest, when you walk in the forest after, if it's humid or after a rainfall, you might smell this petrichor type of aromas. but the true earthy geosmin type of aroma, it's not desirable. So hopefully we won't smell geosmin in the wines that we are going to taste, but you might smell some undergrowth, and that can be quite characteristic in some Chianti's wine. So I invite you to refamiliarize yourself with these different aromas. And of course, you might find other aromas than the ones that I presented to you in this short video. You know, in the fruits, we spend a lot of time in the red and dark fruits, maybe plums. There might be other aromas that you may detect, floral notes, herbaceous notes, spicy notes, earthy notes, but there might be other stuff that your special wine will reveal to you. So I look forward to tasting wine with you. And if you are watching this video and you are not part of the tasting, well, I invite you to go and pick up a Chianti wine and explore this wine for yourself for all these aromatic nuances that it can offer to you. Cheers.